Welcome to Weekend News. I'm Amrita Priyadarshini. Plans to cut down mangroves to make way for industrial development were approved long ago before some of the current cabinet ministers came into power. And the local government minister, Colonel Samuela Somatua, says although the projects have been approved, the ministry assumes all necessary precautions have been taken to ensure the environment is taken care of. FBC News has reported several industrial developments that involve the cutting down or plans to cut down mangroves. Dev Narayan reports.
Dronimbotha Bay in Walukutu, Lami is just one of the sites earmarked by the private sector for a multi-million-dollar foreshore development. The proposed site is, according to a group of concerned residents known as the Bay of Islands Preservation Group, one of the last stand of viable mangroves in the Suba Harbour. Other sites such as these have been mangroves cut down and landfill covering the once swampy areas.
I don't think you can have any development without cutting the mangrove. If you say no cutting of the mangrove, there would be no dinner out today. Okay. But what we really need is a controlled cutting of mangrove, and that's what we are doing, ensuring that there's no wild cutting of mangrove.
The ministry is ensuring the mangroves that have been cut are replaced.
You will notice that there are replanting programs for mangroves in other parts of Fiji at this time. There is also a plan in place now for the Department of Environment to determine how much mangrove we've lost and what we can do to replace them.
Director Town and Country Planning, Losana Rokothim says they haven't made any recommendations as yet for foreshore development as requested by Pacific Building Solutions.
Mangrove wetlands provide breeding, nursery and feeding areas to a variety of life. They filter upland runoff, buffer wave action during cyclones and hurricanes, and they hold soil during heavy precipitation and stabilize the shoreline. Destruction of mangroves alters the ecosystem as well as affects the livelihoods of those who depend on the marine and other varieties of life. Dev Narayan, FBC News.
Fiji and the Pacific have a lot to gain from Barack Obama's re-election as the United States president. Obama has taken up his second term in office, and for our part of the world, it means relations in the Pacific will remain. Edwin Nunn finds out how.
Fiji and her neighbors aren't exactly on President Obama's list of top 10 priorities, but maintaining the global balance of power means taking an interest in the Pacific.
This is really a byproduct of their interest in asserting U.S. presence in the Asia-Pacific, and this is in the context of very real changes that are going on in the power balance, if you like.
China has taken a stronghold in the region, building diplomatic ties, providing aid and loans for major infrastructure work. This hasn't gone unnoticed by the United States, prompting a visit by Secretary of State Hillary Clinton to the Pacific Island Forum meeting in Cook Islands.
China being the main one, but there are other changes in place, and this is also a region where there are some real flashpoints. And the US is obviously very concerned about these flashpoints and about ensuring that its alliances with its major allies continue.
What all this means is that we'll remain on the radar. America will continue to push for an effective presence in Fiji and the region. China, in the meantime, will be keeping a close eye on developments.
I don't think the US is going to necessarily retreat from its engagement with the Pacific Islands. There's going to be some, perhaps, momentum continuing from that.
For President Obama, though, first things first, fixing a struggling economy on the brink of recession and addressing unemployment. Edwin Nund, FBC News.
Police are concerned at the recent increase in crimes committed by juveniles. Yesterday, 2 secondary school students, along with 2 other men, appeared at the Tavua Magistrates Court, charged with raping a 14-year-old girl. The 2 students, one a 17-year-old and another a 16-year-old, have been transferred to the Silver Boys Center for remand, while the 2 men, both aged 23 years, have been remanded at the Namasau prison. They are alleged to have raped the girl in an empty house last month. Earlier in the week, 4 juveniles were also allegedly involved in a rape incident involving a 20-year-old woman. Police say such serious offences trigger a red alert response, and those responsible will be taken to court. There is now a growing demand for Fijians to work in other Pacific Island countries. This comes after Fiji introduced the Volunteer and Foreign Employment Scheme early this year. Epeli Tukuwasa reports.
There is huge demand for employment for our skilled workers from other countries in the region. While the request from the Papua New Guinea government for 5,000 to work in their gas and oil factory is still in the process, workers are starting to leave our shores for Marshall Island under the volunteer scheme.
In the case of teachers, where Nauru and Vanuatu are seeking teachers from Fiji, particularly the retired teachers, we will have them dispatched in the new school year next year.
Chan says the demand for skilled labor in Fiji is such that they are now recruiting more, not just in teaching, but in other fields as well.
Our vision and mission on this is to have a Fijian volunteer serving in each of the countries within the next couple of years. So we want to post a volunteer right across the Pacific.
The Public Service Commission is now processing applications for those who have applied for jobs in Nauru and Kiribati. Chan adds, all those who are interested in enlisting under the scheme should first register with the National Employment Center. Epeli Tukuwasa, FBC News.